Let's go way back in time now, all the way back to 1969 for the debut of Rod Serling's Night Gallery on NBC. This follow-up to Serling's The Twilight Zone debuted as a 3-episode TV movie on November 8th, 1969. Interestingly, it didn't start running as a series until over a year later in December 1970. I wouldn't call the intro for the pilot memorable, but let's set the scene anyway. Maybe the actual series changes this up. All three of tonight's stories are written by Rod Serling, who is hosting the show surrounded by paintings in a dark, spooky room. The Night Gallery, if you will.
Good evening.
The premise of the series is that he reveals a painting which either sets up or has an actual role in the story about to play out. First up is The Cemetery, a star-powered story featuring shaggy-haired Roddy McDowall as the nephew of a dying man, who hopes to accelerate that death in order to collect on his will, which he has most likely altered illegally. The old man has a butler, played by Ossie Davis, who is none too thrilled with McDowall's motives or behavior, but seems powerless to do anything about it. McDowall succeeds in his plans, but is soon haunted by a painting that keeps changing, depicting the old man rising from the grave and coming towards the house to take his revenge.
In life, he needed me. But in death, it's obvious he's strong enough to take care of himself.
Now, you look here, old man. Death is final. Death is it.
I think not, Mr. Jeremy. I think there are things stronger than death and more lasting than the grave.
The Portafoy?
I think hate is stronger than death, Mr. Jeremy, and I think you're beginning to realize that.
Oh, I'm glad hate isn't actually stronger than death. That would be bad. The story was really strong until its fake-out ending, which dismisses all the supernatural stuff entirely, and then fakes out that fake-out by saying the made-up explanation could actually happen, and then it actually does. It makes zero sense and is a huge letdown to an otherwise very watchable story with two terrific performances. The next story is called Eyes, and oh shit, directed by Steven Spielberg. What? Yep, kids, that's right, we're witnessing Spielberg's directorial debut. And it stars Joan Crawford as a blind woman who blackmails a doctor into performing an experimental transplant procedure that'll grant her eyesight for upwards of 12 hours. She's found a donor who's agreed to give up his eyes in exchange for $9,000. And I know 1969 was a while ago, but only $9,000 to give up your eyesight? Nope. The lucky recipient of that windfall of cash, though, is Tom Bosley. Finally, Spielberg gets to direct the legendary Tom Bosley. He's a totally down-on-his-luck degenerate gambler, and I apologize for making a joke about him a second ago because his performance here is one of the most sincere and heartbreaking things I've ever seen.
What's it gonna be like when it's midnight all the time and nobody's paid the electric bill, eh? So what do? White cane, tin cup, pencils? So what's to do? Grieve a little, maybe. Plenty of time for that. Ooh, plenty of time. I'll still be able to cry out of them, won't I?
Crawford gets the surgery, and her plan is to enjoy all her artwork and things before the 12 hours expire. Then, as she finally takes the bandages off, she can see for a moment, but it all goes dark quickly. Angry beyond belief, she has the tantrum of all tantrums before passing out. But see, the thing is, the city had a blackout the second she got her vision back. And as she wakes up at dawn, she realizes she only has precious seconds of sight left. And then she falls out a window. Again, the ending is the thing that makes or breaks these kinds of stories, and this one is just silly. Still, Spielberg.
The National
In October 2017, HBO aired a fairly comprehensive documentary about the life and career of director Steven Spielberg. I was going to watch this eventually anyway, but now felt a sense of urgency because I was curious as to if they would discuss this particular episode of Night Gallery. They do! Not much, but stories are told about Spielberg being a 20-year-old kid who had supposedly snuck onto the Universal lot and set up shop. And then in his first gig, he's directing Joan Crawford, who wanted nothing to do with the young director, and tried to get him fired at the end of each day's shooting. She eventually apologized, but regardless, the young Spielberg was well on his way. Overall, this is a good documentary, but not nearly as in-depth as I would have liked. However, it would have had to have been 10 hours long for that, but again, I don't mind. It's freaking Spielberg. Oh, and if you're wondering if this will come up again when we get to Amazing Stories, nope, it's never even mentioned in the documentary. Oh well. The final story in the Night Gallery pilot is called Escape Route, and it involves a Nazi war criminal fuck who is hiding out in Venezuela, panicked that he'll soon be discovered. He's haunted by sounds, bothered by his prostitute neighbor, and seems to be constantly on the run, at one point ending up in an art gallery where he becomes obsessed with a painting that appears to depict him relaxing in a boat on a lake. He wishes to live in this painting, and when he's on the run again during the story's climax, he enters the closed gallery and begs the painting to let him live in it. Wish granted, but the painting has been moved, and now he's in a much worse one. Yep, that's what you get, Nazi. Escape Route doesn't feel like a great episode to go out on. While the production design is nice, story-wise this just didn't do much for me. Even his potentially gruesome end doesn't feel appropriately gruesome enough for this guy. So regardless of the fact that each of these stories are ultimately a letdown, I think I'm still going to be all in on Night Gallery for a while. And it'll be a part of the rotation here on SpookyTube. The episodes are hokey, yes, but also entertaining. The show is straddling a weird line of conventional studio-based television production and some experimental choices with music and camera work. TV was evolving, and it looks to be evolving during this particular series. It's going to be fascinating to watch. Don't change that channel though, because coming up next we're headed back to 1985 for the proper start of the new fall season. Stay tuned.